The demonstration was supposed to be routine, controlled, safe, but the moment the dog's bark tore through the air, sharp, frantic, relentless, everything changed. The crowd fell silent. The handler froze mid-sentence. Every eye turned toward the benches where families sat in neat rows, waiting for the next exercise. The dog's body was rigid, trembling with urgency, his nose locked on something no one else could see. The handler tugged the leash. The dog didn't budge. He barked again, louder this time, desperate, and then came the first scream. Not from the dog, from the crowd. But what he uncovered wasn't a threat. It was a warning. The morning had started like any other Saturday at the city's central fire station. The sky was a pale wash of blue, streaked with thin clouds that promised warmth by noon. The parking lot behind the station was filling up. Minivans, sedans, a few bicycles chained near the entrance. Families arrived in clusters, parents holding coffee cups, children clutching juice boxes, grandparents settling into folding chairs brought from home. The air smelled faintly of diesel and cut grass. Somewhere in the distance, a lawnmower hummed. Inside the garage bay, the overhead doors had been rolled up to reveal rows of gleaming red trucks, polished boots lined in perfect formation, and equipment racks mounted against the walls like museum displays. Firefighters moved through the space with easy confidence, adjusting hoses, checking oxygen tanks, preparing props for the day's event. This was Community Safety Day, an annual tradition where the department opened its doors to the public, demonstrating rescue techniques, fire prevention, and emergency response protocols. It was equal parts education and spectacle, the kind of event that made kids dream of wearing helmets and riding in the big trucks. At the center of it all stood Captain Marcus Hewitt, a man whose voice carried authority even when he whispered. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with close-cropped gray hair and a face weathered by 2 decades of service. He wore his dress uniform, navy blue with polished brass buttons, and stood near a demonstration table covered in smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, and pamphlets about carbon monoxide poisoning. He smiled as he greeted arriving families, shaking hands, crouching down to speak to children at eye level. Beside him, sitting perfectly still in a harness marked Fire Rescue, was a German shepherd named Axel. Axel was 3 years old, though his eyes held the focused intelligence of something much older. His coat was a deep mix of black and tan, thick and well-groomed, his ears erect and constantly swiveling to track sounds. He had been rescued from a high-kill shelter 18 months earlier, a traumatized stray with no history, no microchip, no name. The shelter staff had been ready to give up on him. He wouldn't eat, wouldn't engage, wouldn't make eye contact. But Marcus had seen something in him, a flicker of awareness, a faint willingness beneath the fear. Training had been slow, patient, weeks of desensitization, trust-building, positive reinforcement. Marcus worked with Axel every single day, teaching him to associate the sound of sirens with action, the smell of smoke with urgency, the weight of his vest with purpose. Gradually, Axel transformed. He learned to detect accelerants, to alert on gas leaks, to stay calm in chaos. He became one of the station's most reliable assets, quietly present on inspections, demonstrations, and community outreach events. Today, Axel was meant to be part of the show, a visual aid, a friendly face to reassure kids that firefighters weren't just humans in helmets. They were teams, partnerships. Some of them even had 4 legs. The benches had been set up in 3 rows facing the demonstration area, a wide stretch of concrete where props were arranged to simulate different scenarios: a mock bedroom with a window, a cutout of a car, a dummy in firefighter gear lying prone on the ground. The setup was familiar. Marcus had done this presentation dozens of times. He knew every beat, every transition, every moment where he'd pause for laughter or applause. The crowd trickled in steadily. By 10 o'clock, nearly 80 people filled the benches. Children sat cross-legged on the ground in front, eyes wide with anticipation. Parents leaned forward, phones ready to record. A reporter from the local paper stood off to the side, notebook in hand. The atmosphere was light, festive, safe. Marcus clipped a microphone to his collar and stepped forward. Axel walked beside him, calm and composed, his leash loose in Marcus's hand. The crowd quieted. "Good morning, everyone," Marcus began, his voice warm and steady. "Thank you for coming out today. We're going to walk you through some of the tools and techniques we use to keep this community safe. You'll see demonstrations of fire suppression, search and rescue protocols, and he gestured down at Axel, who sat obediently at his feet. Some of the incredible work our K9 partners do behind the scenes. A ripple of applause. A few children pointed and whispered. Axel's ears twitched, but he remained still. Marcus moved through the first few segments smoothly. He explained how smoke detectors worked, demonstrated the proper use of a fire extinguisher, showed a video of a controlled burn. The crowd was engaged, nodding along, asking questions. Everything was going exactly as planned. Then came the K9 demonstration. Marcus led Axel to the center of the space, where a small obstacle course had been set up. Cones, tunnels, a ramp, a hidden scent box. This was Axel's moment, a chance to show off his training. Marcus unclipped the leash. Axel here has been trained to detect accelerants, substances used to start or spread fires, Marcus explained. He can identify traces of gasoline, lighter fluid, even certain chemicals in amounts so small we'd never catch them with our own noses. Watch closely. He gave a hand signal. Axel moved forward, head low, sniffing methodically through the course. The crowd watched in silence. Children leaned forward. Parents smiled. Axel reached the scent box, a small plastic container with a hidden sample of diesel fuel inside. He sat immediately, his nose hovering over the lid. Perfect. Good boy, Marcus said, stepping forward to reward him with a treat. The crowd clapped, but Axel didn't relax. His ears pinned back, his body stiffened, and then, without warning, he turned sharply to his right, away from the course, away from Marcus, and bolted toward the benches. Marcus's heart skipped. Axel! The dog didn't stop. He moved with singular focus, weaving between the rows of seated spectators, his nose scanning low to the ground. People pulled their feet back, startled. A few murmured nervously. Marcus followed quickly, keeping his voice calm. Axel, come! The dog ignored him. He stopped abruptly in front of a bench in the second row, a plain wooden bench with a metal frame, identical to the others. A young family sat there, a mother holding a toddler, a father with a backpack at his feet, a little girl clutching a stuffed bear. Axel's entire body locked. He began to bark, sharp, insistent, his nose pressed against the underside of the bench. Marcus reached him, gripping the leash gently but firmly. Easy, boy, easy. The family looked confused. The father glanced down. Is something wrong? Marcus crouched beside Axel, his hand on the dog's back. He could feel the tension radiating through the animal's muscles. This wasn't playfulness. This wasn't distraction. This was an alert. Sir, I'm going to need you to step back from the bench, Marcus said quietly. The father frowned. Why? What's? Just as a precaution, please. The mother stood, clutching the toddler tighter. The little girl followed, her eyes wide. Other families nearby began to shift, murmuring to each other. The festive atmosphere cracked. Marcus knelt lower, peering beneath the bench. Shadows, metal brackets. Nothing unusual, but Axel wouldn't stop barking. His paws scraped against the concrete. Marcus! One of the other firefighters jogged over, concern etched on his face. What's going on? I don't know yet, Marcus said. His pulse quickened. He looked at Axel, truly looked at him. The dog's eyes were locked, unblinking, on the underside of the bench. His nostrils flared. His chest heaved. Something was there. Marcus pulled a flashlight from his belt and clicked it on. He angled the beam beneath the bench, sweeping it slowly across the metal frame. And then he saw it. Tucked into the hollow cavity of the bench's support beam was a small rectangular object wrapped in black electrical tape. Wires protruded from one end, coiled neatly. A faint red light blinked once, then twice. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Everyone stay calm, he said, his voice low but commanding. He stood slowly, keeping his eyes on the device. We need to evacuate. Right now. The crowd didn't understand yet. A few people laughed nervously. Someone asked if this was part of the show. This is not a drill, Marcus said louder, his tone cutting through the confusion. Move toward the exits, quickly and calmly. Do not run. The laughter died. Parents grabbed their children. Chairs scraped against concrete. The murmur of confusion swelled into a wave of rising panic. And then came the first scream. The scream pierced the air like breaking glass. It came from the far end of the benches. A woman in a yellow sundress, her hand pressed to her mouth, her eyes locked on the bench where Axel had been barking. She stumbled backward, nearly tripping over her own feet. There's another one, she shrieked. Under the bench, there's another one. Time slowed. Every head turned. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He ran toward the woman, flashlight still in hand, his mind racing through protocols, procedures, worst-case scenarios. Axel followed at his heels, still alert, still focused. Marcus reached the third row of benches. He crouched, aimed the light beneath the nearest seat, and there it was. Another device, same tape, same wires, same blinking red light. "Oh, God," someone whispered. The crowd exploded into motion. Parents scooped up children and sprinted toward the exits. Chairs toppled, bags were abandoned, voices overlapped, shouting, crying, demanding answers. The orderly demonstration dissolved into chaos in seconds. Marcus straightened, his mind snapping into command mode. He grabbed his radio from his belt and keyed the mic. "Dispatch, this is Captain Hewitt at Central Station. We have a code red. Multiple suspicious devices discovered on site during a public event. Initiating immediate evacuation. Request bomb squad and police response. Repeat, code red." The voice on the other end was sharp, professional. "Copy that, Captain. Units en route. ETA 6 minutes. 6 minutes. Marcus scanned the crowd. 80 people, maybe more. Families with strollers, elderly attendees who couldn't move quickly, children frozen in fear. 6 minutes felt like an eternity. "Everyone out!" Marcus shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "Move toward the street, stay together, do not stop." The other firefighters sprang into action, forming a human corridor to guide people toward the parking lot. Hands reached out to steady the elderly. Parents were ushered forward with reassurances that sounded hollow even as they were spoken. The reporter stood rooted in place, filming everything, until one of the crew physically pulled her toward the exit. Marcus stayed behind. He had to. Procedure demanded that someone remain to secure the perimeter, to keep people from running back in for forgotten belongings, to provide intel when the bomb squad arrived, and Axel stayed too. Marcus looked down at the dog, whose eyes were still fixed on the benches. "Come on, boy, we're done here." But Axel didn't move, his nose lifted, nostrils flaring. He took 2 deliberate steps toward the first row of benches, the ones closest to the demonstration area, the ones no one had sat in because they were reserved for station personnel who hadn't arrived yet. "Axel, no!" The dog barked again, sharper this time, more urgent. Marcus's chest tightened. He followed Axel's gaze. The first row, 4 benches, empty, unremarkable, except they weren't empty. Marcus approached slowly, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He knelt beside the first bench, aimed his flashlight beneath it and felt the world tilt. There were 3 more devices, 1 under each bench, 5 in total, all identical, all blinking. Marcus's throat went dry. This wasn't random. This wasn't amateur. Whoever had done this had planned it meticulously, planting devices in locations designed to maximize damage during a crowded event. If Axel hadn't alerted, if they'd continued the demonstration, if the crowd had stayed seated, he didn't let himself finish the thought. "Dispatch," he said into the radio, his voice steady despite the adrenaline screaming through his veins. "Update. Total of 5 devices identified, all appear to be active. Immediate area is clear of civilians. Recommend full perimeter lockdown. Copy, Captain. Bomb squad is 3 minutes out." Marcus stood, his hand resting on Axel's head. The dog was panting now, his body still tense, but there was something else in his eyes. Not fear, not panic, just focus. Pure, unwavering focus. "You did good, buddy," Marcus murmured. "You did so good." Axel's tail gave a single, tentative wag. Behind them, the last of the crowd disappeared through the parking lot, herded toward a safe zone 2 blocks away. The station garage stood empty now, eerily silent, except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Marcus could see the dummy still lying on the ground, the mock bedroom window propped against a sawhorse, the fire extinguisher demonstration table abandoned mid-setup. It all looked so normal, so harmless. But underneath those benches, red lights blinked in synchronized rhythm. Marcus's radio crackled. "Captain, this is Lieutenant Shah. Bomb squad is pulling in now. We need you to exit the building." "Understood," Marcus replied. He clipped Axel's leash back on and turned toward the exit. His legs felt heavy. Every step away from the devices felt wrong, like abandoning a post, like failing some invisible duty. But protocol was protocol. Trained professionals were taking over now. As they stepped into the sunlight, Marcus saw the bomb squad truck pulling up, a bulky armored vehicle with narrow windows and reinforced plating. 2 technicians emerged, already suited in padded gear, helmets tucked under their arms. They moved with calm precision, their expressions unreadable. One of them, a woman with short dark hair and a scar above her left eyebrow, approached Marcus. "Captain Hewitt, that's me. I'm Sergeant Reyes. Can you walk me through what you found?" Marcus nodded and gave her a concise briefing. The demonstration, Axel's alert, the discovery of the first device, the subsequent identification of 4 more. He described the placement, the wiring, the blinking lights. Reyes listened without interruption, her eyes sharp and assessing. When he finished, she glanced down at Axel. "Your dog found all 5. He found the first one. After that, I searched the area and confirmed the rest." "Lucky dog," she said, though there was no humor in her voice. "And lucky crowd." She turned and signaled to her partner, who was already unloading equipment from the truck. They moved toward the building without hesitation, their movements practiced and efficient. Marcus stood in the parking lot, Axel at his side, and watched them disappear into the garage. Around him, police cruisers formed a perimeter, officers directing traffic, cordoning off the block. News vans arrived within minutes, cameras trained on the station, reporters speaking urgently into microphones. The crowd that had been evacuated stood in clusters down the street, some crying, some on their phones, some simply staring in stunned silence. A young girl, the one who had been sitting near the first device, the one holding the stuffed bear, stood with her parents behind the police tape. She was looking at Axel. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she wasn't crying anymore. She lifted her hand and waved. Axel's ears perked. Marcus gave a small nod in return. "Captain?" Another firefighter approached. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, one of Marcus's most trusted crew members. She looked shaken. "What the hell just happened?" "I don't know yet," Marcus said quietly, "but someone wanted to hurt a lot of people today." "Why here? Why now?" "That's what we need to find out." They stood in silence, watching the bomb squad work. Minutes stretched. The sun climbed higher. Sweat beaded on Marcus's forehead, though he barely felt it. His mind kept replaying the moment Axel had bolted toward the bench, the sharpness of the bark, the rigidity of his posture, the absolute certainty in his alert. If Axel had been distracted, if Marcus had dismissed the behavior, if they'd continued the demonstration for even 5 more minutes. "Sir?" Reyes emerged from the garage, pulling off her helmet. Her expression was grim. "All 5 devices have been secured and removed. Preliminary assessment suggests they were live and fully functional. Timers were set for 11:15. Marcus checked his watch. It was 10:47. 28 minutes. They'd had 28 minutes. "Do you have any idea who did this?" Marcus asked. "Not yet, but we're taking this seriously. FBI's been notified. We'll be processing the scene for the next several hours. I need you and your team to compile a list of everyone who had access to this space in the last 48 hours. Staff, contractors, delivery personnel, anyone." "Understood." Reyes looked down at Axel again, and this time, something softened in her face. "Your dog saved lives today, Captain. I hope you know that." Marcus nodded, his throat tight. "I do." She walked away, rejoining her team. Marcus exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment pressing down on him like a physical force. Axel sat at his feet, panting lightly, his gaze still fixed on the building. "Come on, boy," Marcus said gently. "Let's get you some water." They walked toward the station's side entrance, away from the cameras, away from the chaos. Marcus's hands were shaking. He clenched them into fists, willing the adrenaline to subside. But as they rounded the corner, Marcus stopped, because standing near the back fence, half hidden in the shadow of a dumpster, was a man. He was tall, thin, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. His hands were stuffed in his pockets. He wasn't moving. He was just watching. Marcus's instincts flared. "Hey!" he called out. "This area's off limits!" The man's head turned. For a brief second, their eyes met. The man's expression was unreadable, not panicked, not guilty, just blank. Then he turned and walked away, quickly, not running but purposeful. "Hey, stop!" Marcus shouted. The man didn't stop. He slipped through a gap in the fence and disappeared into the alley beyond. Marcus grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, we have a possible suspect fleeing the scene. Male, approximately 6 feet tall, gray hoodie, heading east through the alley behind Central Station. Request immediate police response." "Copy, Captain. Units are en route." But Marcus knew, even as he spoke the words, that the man was already gone. The hours that followed felt surreal. The station transformed from a place of controlled professionalism into a crime scene under siege. Yellow tape crisscrossed the garage. Forensic teams swept every surface. FBI agents arrived in unmarked cars, flashing badges, asking questions in low, measured tones. The crowd that had been evacuated was interviewed in shifts. Names, contact information, statements recorded on tablets and voice recorders. Marcus sat in the station's conference room, a styrofoam cup of cold coffee in front of him, answering the same questions over and over. What time did the demonstration start? Who had access to the building? Had he noticed anyone acting strangely? Had Axel ever alerted like this before? The agents were polite, but relentless. One of them, a man in his 40s with wire-rimmed glasses and a methodical demeanor, kept circling back to the man Marcus had seen near the fence. "You're certain he wasn't part of the crowd?" "Positive," Marcus said. "I know most of the families who attend these events. He wasn't one of them." "And he left the moment you called out to him?" "Yes." "Did he say anything? Make any gestures?" "No. He just looked at me. Then he left." The agent made a note. "We're pulling security footage from nearby businesses. If he's on camera, we'll find him." Marcus nodded, though he felt a gnawing sense of unease. Whoever this person was, he'd been calm, too calm, like he'd known exactly what was about to happen. Axel lay beside Marcus's chair, his head resting on his paws. He was exhausted. The adrenaline had finally worn off, leaving him limp and quiet. Marcus reached down and stroked his ears. "He's a good dog," the agent said, glancing at Axel. "We've worked with K9 units before, but I've never seen one alert that decisively on something that wasn't part of a planned exercise." "He's better than good," Marcus said quietly. "He's the only reason we're having this conversation." The agent closed his notebook. "Get some rest, Captain. We'll be in touch." Marcus left the conference room and walked through the station, which still buzzed with activity. Officers compared notes. Techs examined fragments of the devices under portable lights. Someone had set up a coffee station near the entrance, and the smell of burnt brew filled the air. Outside, the news vans remained parked along the curb, their satellite dishes pointed skyward. A reporter spotted Marcus through the window and started toward the door, but an officer intercepted her. Marcus slipped out the side entrance and headed for his truck. Axel followed without hesitation, hopping into the passenger seat the moment the door opened. They sat in silence for a moment, the engine idling, the world outside muted behind closed windows. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from his wife, Emily. "Just saw the news. Are you okay?" He typed back, "I'm fine. Coming home soon. Long story." Another buzz. This time from Lieutenant Chen. "Media's asking for a statement. Chief wants you to handle it tomorrow morning. You up for that?" Marcus stared at the screen, then set the phone face down on the dashboard. He wasn't ready to talk about this. Not yet, not when he didn't have answers. He drove home slowly, the streets quiet in the afternoon lull. Axel dozed in the passenger seat, his breathing deep and even. Marcus envied him that, the ability to let go, to trust that the danger had passed. Their house was a modest two-story at the edge of town, painted pale blue with white shutters. Emily was waiting on the porch, her arms crossed, her expression tight with worry. The moment Marcus stepped out of the truck, she was down the steps and pulling him into a hug. "I was so scared," she whispered against his chest. "They said there were bombs, that families were there, that—" "We're okay," Marcus said, holding her close. "Everyone's okay." She pulled back, her eyes searching his face. "What happened? Let's go inside. I'll tell you everything." They sat at the kitchen table, and Marcus walked her through the morning, every detail, every moment, every second of rising dread. Emily listened without interrupting, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes glistening. When he finished, she looked at Axel, who was lying on his bed in the corner, sound asleep. "He saved them," she said softly. "He saved all of them." "He did." Emily wiped her eyes. "Do they know who did it?" "Not yet, but they will." "Are you safe? Are we safe?" Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't know, but I'm not going to let fear control us." She nodded, though the worry didn't leave her face. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day in fragments. The bark, the bench, the blinking lights, the man in the grey hoodie, the way he'd looked at Marcus, not with fear, but with something else. Recognition, curiosity, challenge. At 2 a.m, Marcus gave up on sleep and went downstairs. He poured himself a glass of water and stood at the kitchen window, looking out at the empty street. Axel appeared beside him, his presence quiet and grounding. "You knew, didn't you?" Marcus murmured. "You knew something was wrong before anyone else did." Axel's tail thumped once against the floor. Marcus crouched down, eye level with the dog. "I don't know what happens next, but whatever it is, we're in it together." Axel leaned forward and licked Marcus's hand. The next morning, Marcus returned to the station to find it still cordoned off. The bomb squad had finished their sweep, but the FBI wasn't done. Agents moved through the building, photographing, measuring, cataloging. Marcus was told to stay out of the garage for now. It was still an active investigation. Instead, he spent the morning in his office, fielding calls from city officials, community leaders, and reporters. Everyone wanted a statement. Everyone wanted reassurance. Everyone wanted to know how this could have happened. At 11 o'clock, Marcus held a press conference on the station's front lawn. Microphones clustered like a metallic bouquet in front of him. Cameras filmed from every angle. He kept his answers brief, professional, deflecting questions he couldn't answer. "Can you confirm the devices were intended to detonate during the demonstration?" a reporter asked. "That's part of the ongoing investigation," Marcus replied. "I can't comment on specifics." "How many people were in attendance?" "Approximately 80. Do you have any leads on a suspect?" "The FBI is handling that portion of the investigation. We're cooperating fully." "Is it true your dog found the bombs?" Marcus paused. He glanced down at Axel, who sat beside him, wearing his vest, his posture calm despite the chaos. "Yes," Marcus said. "Axel alerted on the first device. His training and instincts prevented a tragedy. Will he receive any recognition?" "That's not for me to decide, but he deserves every bit of it." The reporters scribbled notes, snapped photos, shouted follow-up questions. Marcus answered a few more, then ended the conference and retreated inside. Lieutenant Chen met him in the hallway. "Chief wants to see you." Marcus followed her to the chief's office, a wood-paneled room with commendations on the walls and a desk cluttered with paperwork. Chief Raymond was a broad-shouldered man in his late 50s, his hair more salt than pepper, his face lined with decades of service. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a chair. Marcus sat. Axel settled beside him. The chief leaned back, studying Marcus for a long moment. "Hell of a day yesterday." "Yes, sir. I've been getting calls from the mayor, the city council, even the governor's office. Everyone wants to know the same thing. How did this happen?" "I don't have an answer yet, sir." "I know, but we need one. Soon." The chief sighed, rubbing his temples. "The FBI's working the case, but they're not sharing much. What they did tell me is that the devices were sophisticated, professionally made, not something a kid with a grudge could throw together." Marcus's stomach tightened. "You're saying this was planned by someone with training?" "That's what it looks like." "Do they have any suspects?" "They're following leads. That's all they'll say." The chief leaned forward. "Marcus, I need you to be prepared for the possibility that this wasn't random. Whoever did this chose this location, this event, this day. That means they might have been targeting us specifically." Marcus felt a chill run through him. Why would anyone target a fire station? "I don't know. But until we have answers, we're tightening security. No more public events, no more open houses, and I want you to watch your back." "Understood." The chief's gaze softened. "You and Axel did something extraordinary yesterday. You saved lives. Don't forget that." Marcus nodded, though the praise felt hollow. Saving lives was the job. It was what he'd signed up for. But this felt different. This felt personal. He left the chief's office and walked to the garage, where the yellow tape had finally been removed. The benches were gone, confiscated as evidence. The demonstration props had been cleared away. The space looked empty, incomplete. Marcus stood in the center of the floor where Axel had first alerted. He closed his eyes and tried to remember every detail. The bark, the crowd, the red lights blinking in the shadows. And then he thought of the man in the gray hoodie, the one who had watched, the one who had walked away. That night, Marcus received a call from Agent Romero, the lead investigator on the case. "Captain, we've identified the man you saw by the fence." Marcus's pulse quickened. "Who is he?" "His name is Daniel Cray, 32 years old, former military, Army EOD, honorably discharged 3 years ago." EOD, explosive ordnance disposal. Marcus felt his chest tighten. "You're telling me an explosives expert was at the scene?" "Yes, and it gets worse. Cray's been on our radar for the past 6 months. He's been linked to anti-government rhetoric online, attending fringe rallies, making inflammatory posts. Nothing actionable until now." "Where is he?" "We don't know. He hasn't been home in 2 days. We've issued a warrant for his arrest. But I need you to stay vigilant, Captain. If this was his work, and he knows you identified him. You could be at risk." Marcus's hand tightened around the phone. "What about the devices? Can you trace them?" "We're working on it. The components are commercially available, but the assembly was meticulous. This wasn't his first time." The line went quiet for a moment. "Captain," Romero said, his voice gentler now, "you did everything right. Your dog did everything right. But this isn't over. Stay safe." The call ended. Marcus stood in the kitchen, the phone still in his hand, his mind racing. Axel sat at his feet, watching him with dark, knowing eyes. "We're not done yet, are we?" Marcus murmured. Axel's tail thumped once against the floor, and somewhere out there, in the city's sprawling web of streets and shadows, Daniel Cray was still free. 2 days passed with agonizing slowness. Marcus returned to work, but the station felt different, quieter, tenser, like everyone was waiting for something to shatter the fragile calm. Police patrols increased in the neighborhood. Security cameras were installed around the building. Every delivery truck, every visitor, every unfamiliar face was scrutinized. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. On the third day, just after dawn, his phone rang. The caller ID read, "FBI, Romero." Marcus answered immediately. "This is Captain Hewitt." "Captain, we've located Cray. He's barricaded inside an abandoned warehouse on the east side. SWAT's assembling now. I thought you'd want to know." Marcus's heart pounded. "I'm on my way." "Captain, this is a law enforcement operation. You don't need to—" "I'm on my way," Marcus repeated, his tone brooking no argument. He grabbed his jacket, clipped Axel's leash, and headed for the truck. Emily appeared in the hallway, her expression alarmed. "Marcus, what's happening?" "They found him, the man from the station." "You're going." "I have to." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She stepped forward and kissed him hard. "Be careful." "I will." The drive to the warehouse took 20 minutes. Marcus navigated through narrow industrial streets, lined with shuttered factories and graffiti-covered walls. The neighborhood was desolate, chain-link fences, broken windows, weeds growing through cracked pavement. When he arrived, the scene was already in full swing. Police cruisers formed a perimeter around a massive brick building with boarded-up windows and a rusted metal door. SWAT members in tactical gear crouched behind vehicles, rifles trained on the entrance. Helicopters circled overhead, their rotors slicing the air. Agent Romero stood near a mobile command center, speaking into a radio. He spotted Marcus and waved him over. "Captain, glad you could make it. What's the situation?" "Cray's inside. Alone, as far as we can tell. He hasn't responded to negotiation attempts. We've got thermal imaging confirming his location, second floor, northeast corner. But here's the problem." Romero gestured toward a laptop screen showing a live feed of the building's interior. "We're picking up heat signatures consistent with explosive materials, multiple sources. He's got the place rigged." Marcus's stomach dropped. "So this is a standoff, or a suicide mission, we're not sure yet." Romero glanced at Axel. "Your dog, he's trained in explosives detection, right?" "Yes, we might need him. If Cray surrenders, we'll need to sweep the building before we can secure it. Your dog could save us hours." Marcus looked down at Axel, who sat alert and focused, his eyes fixed on the warehouse. "He'll do it," Marcus said quietly. Minutes stretched into an hour. Negotiators called out to Cray over loudspeakers, their voices echoing through the empty streets. No response. SWAT prepared for a breach, but every plan was risky. Too many explosives, too many unknowns. And then, without warning, the warehouse door opened. Everyone tensed, rifles aimed, commands were shouted. "Show your hands, get on the ground." A figure emerged, tall, thin, wearing the same grey hoodie Marcus had seen days earlier. Daniel Cray. He walked slowly, his hands raised above his head, his expression calm. Too calm. "Don't shoot," he called out, his voice steady. "I'm unarmed. I'm surrendering." SWAT moved in immediately, surrounding him, forcing him to the ground, securing his hands with zip ties. Cray didn't resist. He lay face down on the pavement, his cheek pressed against the cold concrete, his eyes open and staring at nothing. Marcus watched from behind the command center, his pulse hammering. Something was wrong. This was too easy. Romero must have felt it too. He barked into his radio. "Get him away from the building, now!" SWAT dragged Cray back toward the perimeter, but as they moved, Cray turned his head just slightly, and his eyes found Marcus. He smiled, and then the warehouse exploded. The blast was massive. A roar of fire and shattered brick erupted from the second floor, sending debris hurtling into the sky. Windows shattered in nearby buildings. The ground shook. Marcus was thrown backward, his ears ringing, his vision blurred by smoke and dust. Axel barked frantically, pulling at the leash. Marcus staggered to his feet, coughing, disoriented. Around him, officers shouted into radios, calling for medical teams, firefighters, additional units. The warehouse was engulfed in flames. Black smoke poured from every opening, twisting into the sky like a living thing. Romero appeared beside Marcus, his face streaked with soot. "Is anyone inside?" "I don't know," Marcus gasped. "We need to—" A second explosion, smaller but sharp. A shockwave rippled through the air. "Everyone back," Romero ordered. "Clear the area." But Marcus wasn't listening. He was staring at the warehouse, at the flames consuming it, and a horrifying realization crashed over him. This wasn't about the station. It had never been about the station. This was a diversion, a test, a message, and Cray hadn't been working alone. Marcus grabbed Romero's arm. "Where is he? Where's Cray?" Romero turned, scanning the crowd of officers, and then his face went pale. Cray was gone. Somewhere in the chaos between the first explosion and the second, he had slipped away. The zip ties lay abandoned on the pavement, cleanly cut. Marcus's blood ran cold. "He set this up," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "All of it. The bombs at the station, the warehouse, the surrender, it was all planned." Romero cursed under his breath and grabbed his radio. "All units. Suspect is on the move. Daniel Cray is armed and dangerous. Lock down the perimeter. No one gets in or out." But Marcus already knew it was too late. Cray was a ghost. He'd orchestrated every move, every step, every second. And now, he was gone. Axel pressed against Marcus's leg, his body tense, his eyes scanning the smoke-filled street. "Find him," Marcus whispered. Axel's nose lifted. He sniffed the air once, twice. Then he pulled hard on the leash, straining toward the east. "He's got something," Marcus said urgently. "He's tracking something." Romero hesitated, then nodded. "Go. But stay on comms." Marcus and Axel moved through the chaos, weaving between emergency vehicles, past firefighters dragging hoses toward the blaze. Axel's focus was absolute, his nose low to the ground, his body pulling forward with singular purpose. They crossed into an alley behind the warehouse, narrow, dark, filled with overturned dumpsters and shattered glass. Axel didn't slow. He moved faster, his paws barely making sound on the pavement. And then, at the end of the alley, Marcus saw him. Daniel Cray stood beside an open manhole, one leg already inside, his grey hoodie stained with soot. He looked up as Marcus approached, and for a moment, their eyes locked. "You shouldn't have come," Cray said quietly. "You're not getting away," Marcus replied, his hand moving instinctively toward the radio on his belt. Cray smiled, a sad, hollow expression. "I already did." And then he dropped into the manhole and disappeared. Marcus rushed forward, Axel at his side. He looked down into the darkness. A ladder descending into the city's sewer system, the sound of rushing water echoing below. "Dispatch, I have eyes on the suspect," Marcus said into his radio. "He's entering the sewer system via a manhole on East Industrial Drive. Requesting backup and a tactical team. Copy, Captain. Units are en route." But Marcus knew that by the time they arrived, Cray would be gone. The sewers were a labyrinth, miles of tunnels, dozens of exits. He could be anywhere. Marcus looked at Axel. "Can you track him?" Axel's ears perked. He sniffed the edge of the manhole, his tail stiff, his body vibrating with focus. And then he barked. Marcus made a decision. He clipped Axel's leash to his belt, clicked on his flashlight, and climbed down the ladder. The descent was steep, the rungs slick with moisture. The air grew colder, damper, thick with the smell of mildew and stagnant water. At the bottom, Marcus's boots splashed into a shallow stream running through the center of the tunnel. Darkness pressed in from all sides. His flashlight beam cut through it like a blade, illuminating crumbling brick walls, rusted pipes, and shadows that moved with the flicker of water. Axel moved ahead, his nose working furiously. He didn't hesitate at the intersections, didn't second guess. He knew where Cray had gone. They moved deeper into the tunnels, the sound of their breathing and the rush of water the only noise. Minutes passed. Marcus's pulse was steady now, his mind clear. This was what training prepared you for, the moment when instinct and discipline collided. And then Axel stopped. He stood in the center of the tunnel, his body rigid, his ears pinned back. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Marcus aimed his flashlight ahead, and there, 20 feet away, stood Daniel Cray. He wasn't running anymore. He stood with his back to the wall, his hands at his sides, his face illuminated by the beam of Marcus's light. He looked exhausted, defeated. "It's over," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the narrow space. Cray let out a short, bitter laugh. "You think this is over? You have no idea what you've walked into." "Then explain it to me." Cray shook his head. "You wouldn't understand. You're just a cog in the machine. You protect a system that doesn't care about people like me, like us. I care about stopping people from getting hurt. Do you?" Cray's voice rose, sharp and angry. "Then why didn't you stop them from throwing me away? I served my country. I defused bombs in places you couldn't even pronounce. I saved lives. And when I came home, nothing, no job, no support, no one gave a damn." Marcus kept his voice calm. "I'm sorry for what you've been through, but this isn't the answer." "There is no answer," Cray shouted. "That's the point. The system failed me. So I decided to make it pay attention. By killing innocent people, no one was supposed to die." Cray's voice cracked. "The devices at the station, they were set to detonate after the demonstration ended, when the building was empty. It was meant to be a message, a statement." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Then why were the timers set for 11:15? The demonstration wasn't over." Cray's face twisted. "Because someone changed them. Someone who wanted blood." The words hung in the air like poison. "What are you talking about?" Marcus asked, his voice hard. "I didn't plant all 5 devices," Cray said, his voice quieter now. "I planted 2. Someone else added the others. Someone who knew what I was planning and turned it into something worse." Marcus's mind raced. "Who?" "I don't know. But they contacted me online, offered to help. I thought they understood." Cray laughed bitterly. "I was an idiot." Behind Marcus, footsteps echoed. Backup had arrived. Voices called out. Flashlights swept the tunnel. Cray raised his hands slowly. "I'm done running." Officers moved in, securing Cray, pulling him to his feet. He didn't resist. As they led him past Marcus, Cray stopped and looked at Axel. "Your dog," he said quietly. "He saved them, didn't he?" Marcus nodded. "Good," Cray said. "At least someone got it right." And then he was gone, swallowed by the darkness and the surrounding officers. The investigation took weeks. Cray's confession led to a sprawling inquiry that uncovered a network of individuals who had been radicalized online, drawn together by shared grievances and manipulated by an unknown figure who went by the handle Architect. Cray had been a pawn, used, manipulated, and ultimately abandoned. The FBI tracked the digital footprint, following encrypted messages, tracing IP addresses, unraveling a web of coded communications. Eventually they found him, a software engineer named Marcus Lowe, living in a quiet suburb 3 states away. He had no criminal record, no history of violence. He was, by all accounts, a regular person, except he'd spent years nurturing resentment, building a following, and turning troubled individuals into weapons. Lowe was arrested without incident. His trial would take months, but the public finally had answers. The devices at the station had been a hybrid plot, Cray's original plan, warped by Lowe's addition of more bombs with earlier timers. Lowe had wanted casualties. He'd wanted spectacle. He'd wanted chaos. Marcus testified at Cray's trial. He spoke about the day of the demonstration, about Axel's alert, about the man he'd seen by the fence. Cray was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Lowe received life without parole. The station held a quiet ceremony in the weeks that followed. No cameras, no press, just the crew, their families, and a few community members who had been at the demonstration. Axel was presented with a commendation, a plaque engraved with his name and the words, "For courage, loyalty, and service above self." Marcus accepted it on his behalf, his hand resting on Axel's head as the small crowd applauded. The dog sat calmly, his tail wagging just slightly, his eyes scanning the room as if he were already looking for the next task. Afterward, Marcus took Axel for a walk through the neighborhood. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Children played in front yards, families gathered on porches. Life continued, as it always did, resilient and ordinary. Marcus sat on a bench in the park, and Axel lay at his feet, his breathing deep and content. "You know what the irony is?" Marcus said quietly. "Cray thought no one cared. He thought he was invisible. But you cared enough to stop him. Even when he was trying to destroy everything." Axel's tail thumped once against the ground. Marcus leaned back, his gaze drifting to the sky. "I don't know if people understand what you did. They see the medals, the news stories, but they don't see the moment. That one moment where everything could have gone wrong, where instinct and training collided, where you made the choice to act. He reached down and scratched behind Axel's ears. "Thank you, buddy, for being better than all of us." Axel rested his head on Marcus's boot, his eyes closing in peaceful exhaustion. The world moved on. Community Safety Day was rescheduled, this time with heightened security, but also with renewed purpose. Families returned. Children asked questions. Marcus and Axel demonstrated fire safety, search and rescue techniques, and the importance of trust between humans and their canine partners. And when the demonstration ended, when the crowd dispersed and the trucks were put away, Marcus stood in the empty garage and looked at the spot where the benches had been. He thought about the 80 people who had come that day. The parents, the children, the elderly, the ones who had no idea how close they'd come to tragedy. And he thought about the dog who had refused to let it happen. Sometimes the world is saved not by grand gestures or heroic speeches, but by a single moment of awareness, a bark, an alert, a refusal to ignore what others cannot see. Axel didn't understand the politics of radicalization or the complexities of justice. He didn't know about timers or explosives or the darkness that can live in a human heart, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Something was wrong, and that was enough. In the months that followed, Axel continued his work. He attended demonstrations, inspections, school visits. He alerted on gas leaks, detected accelerants, and sat patiently while children asked if they could pet him. He did his job without expectation of reward, without need for recognition, because that's what loyalty is, that's what service means. Not the medals or the headlines or the praise, but the quiet, steadfast presence in the moments that matter most. Marcus often thought about the little girl who had waved at Axel from behind the police tape. He'd seen her again at a later event, and she'd run up to Axel, hugging him tightly, whispering, "Thank you," into his fur. Axel had simply wagged his tail, as if to say, "This is what I do." And in the end, that was the only answer that mattered, because heroes don't always wear badges. Sometimes they walk on 4 paws. Sometimes they sit quietly at your feet. Sometimes they bark when no one else hears the danger, and sometimes that bark is the only thing standing between the world and catastrophe. Loyalty isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't ask for applause. It simply acts. In the moment, without hesitation, and in doing so, it saves lives.